Hello and welcome to It's Your Life Own It. My name is Marissa Bludon. I am your host, and I am, as always, so excited to be with you this morning. And we are hoping that our words inspire you. We are talking about today trusting your instincts. Teresa and I was having a very good conversation backstage, and we want to bring that conversation to the front stage. So taking center stage and owning it with me is contributing writer for Own It magazine and publishing, Teresa Palmer. It's just going to be us so far this morning. The rest of the team is traveling internationally, taking care of themselves and their health and their well-being, onboarding patients. So we got a team that is very, very active. But Teresa didn't count it robbery to be with me this morning and to, hopefully motivate you to trust your own instincts. So Teresa, you were talking to me backstage in regards to the chaos and all this other stuff that's going on. And the real need for people to trust themselves, trust their own instincts. So share with us a little bit of your insight in regards to what's happening out here.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I think this is a pretty exhilarating topic. I think it's one that needs to be talked about. And there may be people out there that are hesitant to go with this conversation. And the conversation is really about we don't really trust ourselves. We don't trust ourselves really to make decisions. And it's not our fault. We've been conditioned that way. As children, we're very intuitive. We do what our heart and our head in balance tells us to do. We use a combination of those feelings, that intuition that comes from the heart, and we use that logic that comes from our head. And from there, we make a decision, whether it be how we play, how we do things. We do it very confidently from knowing that we're capable of making these decisions. And as children, we don't really realize that. It's just how we were created. But as we get older and we go to adulthood, all of a sudden we're told, you don't know this, you don't know that. I'm an expert in this person is an expert in that. This is the way society does it. This is the way religion does it, spirituality does it, anything. We're told that you have to follow this crowd. And it becomes embedded in us, where when our heart may tell us something and our heart and our brain gets out of whack. So our heart tries to talk to us and we ignore it. And then the brain takes over fully and we get into that very too logical mode. Of course, I should follow X, Y, and Z because I'm a part of society or I'm a part of this group or community. But my heart is telling me maybe I should move forward with this. But no, there's no concrete logic. I can't map it out step by step. But if I listen to so and so who's telling me this, they could map it out step by step for me. And not only does it become a convenience, it becomes a way of life. And if you look at how things are going in the outside world, we've got dozens, maybe hundreds of people, whether it be teachers, whether it be spiritual teachers, whether it be religious leaders, whether it be politicians, regardless of who it is, people are telling us that they know what's best for us. Mm-hmm. That's what they're saying. And then as a result, we're not confident in how we feel. And a lot of times that doesn't lead to us making the best decisions for us. And by that, I mean individually. Each person is unique in their own right. Even though we're all interconnected in the universe, we're still unique people. And we have a certain purpose. And if you want to call it a path to follow, there's something we were put on this earth to do. And if we can't listen to our heart and our brain together and get them aligned, we get thrown off course with that purpose. And then the next thing you know, we're trying to do somebody else's path or purpose, or what someone else or a group thinks that we should be doing. And I think it's It's pretty evident out there when you look at all everything that's going on is just so chaotic. Violence usually ensues when people don't know what to do. That's kind of a last resort for people. You resort to violence, you're kind of at your wit's end.
Right.
So if you look at, all the violence, if you look at um, people saying, this is going on, that's going on, I could help you with this, uh, it becomes so chaotic that we don't know our own voice. And that's where we run into problems.
Yeah. And I believe that that's the strategy, right? So that's the strategy to keep you in chaos so that you don't pay attention to yourself. And we've talked about it over and over and over again on this platform, the importance of self-connection, being self-aware, because when you spend enough time in quiet, and it doesn't necessarily mean where nothing is on, when you spend enough time by yourself processing information that's coming in on your own, you do your own what? Critical thinking, deductive reasoning. You do that yourself without any influence or penetration of outside influences or perspectives, because that's when we start questioning ourselves. So when we're little kids, when we're first little kids, um, we learn our schema, how we see life and how we interact with life based on the adults, either they're our parents or guardians, those who are taking care of us at a very early age. We learn what's in that household. It's not until we leave outside of that household, going to school, going to social events, that we get the interjection of other people's opinions and how other people do things. But the foundation has already been laid, the schema has already been set early on by those who are immediate influences into our lives. And we lose that when we start going out more frequently and we start getting more and more different opinions and perspectives, and we get feedback and evaluations and assessments and all that other stuff that cause us, if we are not spending time enough with ourselves, if we have not identified with who we are, our core values, how we see things, we can be persuaded. You shared a little bit in regards to some of the people who offer services, but I want to backtrack. It's easier to follow than it is to lead. It is much easier. So people take the path of less resistance, right? They have a tendency to go, what is the easier path? My kids would say, Mom, you work too hard. They're judging me. We ain't doing all of that. When it's our time to be adults, we're not doing what you're doing. So they judged it, but it's not a lot of work for me. When they're looking and saying it's a lot of work, it's not a lot of work because I'm operating in my gifting, I'm operating in my talents. So I'm good with going against the grain. I'm good with not fitting in. I posted this morning Dr. Seuss's quote, "Why fit in when you were born to stand out?" And when we spend enough time with ourselves, we don't have any issue or any challenge with bucking the system or asking. I forget who it is, whether it's Socrates or Plato, but it said, question the teacher. Question and I had a good friend to me say, Marissa, consider the source. So when someone's giving you their feedback, their opinion, or their ideology, she says, question the source. Is it something that's reliable? Is it trustworthy? Do you resonate with it? That's how we can slow down some of this chaos. Just because there's chaos around you doesn't mean that you have to be a part of it. And the complexity comes in. I know when I was introduced to the word complexity, it was always introduced as a problematic thing. Like complexity is being difficult or hard. Complexity means the extreme by which there's difference, right? That's complexity. And complexity comes in when we are all humans, but each one of us have our own spin on humanity and what that means to us individually. That's where complexity comes in. It's not a problem. It's just a large variations of differences. And so it's just so important for us to just woosah and be by unplug, put the technology down and resonate and say, how do I really feel about this? How is this true about me? What do I see myself as? And when we begin to and journal. So a part of actually processing what's happening is journal. Own it is all about embracing the good, the bad, the ugly, and indifferent. It's not about putting on a mask. It's not about brushing something under the rug, because we know if you brush something under the rug long enough, there becomes a hill on top of that rug. It's not flat. So it's best to just clean it up. Every time I feel like sweeping something in the corner because I need to go and do something real quick, or to wash wash something out real quick without washing everything, I'm reminded, my mom's voice comes to me and says, Marissa, never do a half-ass job. She said, if you're going to do something, do it right. Don't do a half-stepping job. And so that always, whenever I'm ready to cut a corner, take the easy road, that voice is in my head to say, that's not how you do it. Do it the right way. And there are core values that we have. There are moral standards that we individually possess. But if we don't stay in tune, if we don't shut things off, we get disconnected from our own moral values. And then we don't understand why we're in conflict with ourselves, because we're acting outside of our behavior, outside of our own desires, and outside of our own values and ideology and approach to life. And so you talked about, Teresa, some of these individuals who offer these services and claim to be have all these titles. Share a little bit about that.
Okay, we're kind of stepping into some things here, but it's so important for people to use their discretion and use their intuition, how they're feeling. If they go to study with somebody, join a community group, because right now, because there's so much chaos out there and uncertainty, we're looking to ease that and to feel more comfortable. So if somebody says, I can do this, that, and the other thing, they may be able to do that, but they may not. So a lot of times you see where people get involved with things because it sounds good. There's no, some people and organizations, whatever, some are just good at talking without really saying anything. You talk, 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 but if you don't really have a plan or you can't offer people something concrete, like as a teacher, it's always what people should be asking themselves when looking for any kind of teacher is, what can that person do for me? How does what they're saying and doing, how is that going to benefit me? And I think that's the most important question we need to ask ourselves, because right now there's just so many things out there. And I see it a lot. And I'm not knocking anything or anybody, but even with the spiritual communities and all, you see people that are taking advantage of the chaos, of the uncertainty, and either not really making promises to people, but not being really clear as to what they have to offer, but making it sound like, oh, this is spectacular, or this person is going to save me. And then you land up either spending money, spending your time and money, and then you realize that you're not getting exactly what you want, or you're in the same position. And a lot of times, we, without being discretionary, we either jump into things or we follow things. And I'm not a political person. I'm not. But I think if you look at politics in general, a lot of times people follow without really discerning what's being said, what what has happened, what could happen. They're just listening sometimes to a somebody saying something. And even with media and advertising, that's all designed to show whomever or whatever in the best light. If you're working with the media's job is to make you appear the best that you could be. It doesn't mean that you are, it just means that's the spin on things. And if you're not really astute and you don't really know yourself, you're liable to get involved with something. And that's really how even cults develop, where people are so unsure within themselves, or they've been traumatized, or so much has gone on that they're looking for somebody else to save them. And a cult leader comes along,
Hmm.
X, Y, and Z, I'm this, I'm that, or this is what we're going to do. Other people in the group are just as vulnerable. And the next thing you know, you've slid into something that now you really can't get out of without a big problem. And you're looking, you're kind of looking to take on an identity because you don't have one yourself. And
Right.
I think, that's so dangerous. And I just hate to see, with so much uncertainty that's going on now, that people take the time to look within themselves, to sit quietly, to listen to what their heart is saying to them, and to match it with what their brain, what logically they're thinking. And if there's any dispute between the two, if the heart is saying something and the brain is saying something else, stop and don't do it. Sit, whether it takes you a day, a week, a month, or whatever. Sit with those feelings every day and really get your heart and your brain on the same page. Because when your heart and your brain is on the same page, you're making a good decision. You're knowing yourself, but you're also realizing that you just can't live with feelings, that there has to be some logic.
Hmm.
So when either one is out of whack, that's where we get in trouble. Look at people that have a whirlwind romance. A
Hmm.
lot of times that's just, they're just listening to their heart. They're not listening to any logic. They're not seeing the full picture. It's just, I want what I want. And there's a saying that says the heart wants what the heart wants. In a way, that's true. But if you combine your heart and your brain, you put the logic into that and you tame down that. And it's not really passion. Like, people will go out and, oh, I met this person, I'm in love with them. 3 days later, they're getting engaged. A week later, they're getting married. You don't know the person.
Right.
That's really jumping off a cliff. That's not using your heart and your brains.
Right.
That's just, either I'm in a situation that's so bad I want to get out of it, I want somebody else to save me, or I'm just so enamored with this person on a superficial level that I'm not bothering to look further into it.
Yeah, yeah. I think that we also got into our society many years ago, and I remember writing a paper in regards to leadership styles, um, and we got away from emotions, and so we don't want to take the time to listen to one another. We don't want to take the time to hear people out. That people are even afraid. They'll say, "Well, Um, what's the saying, they use, basically they can't complain about anything because they don't want to send that negative energy out, and all of this foolishness. It's foolishness to me, in the sense of, if you are going through something, it's one thing to dwell on it. But just like we eat food and it has to be discarded, it has to go through our body, it has to process through our body, and it has to be discarded. Is the same way that we have to discard what we're experiencing in life experiences. There needs to be a safe space. The reason why most people will go to these cults and join these organizations or connect with people in a vulnerable state, is because they don't have a network, they don't have family, they don't have a village, that they can go and be very, very transparent in a safe place. And we need to start doing that. There's a reason why the behavioral society, behavioral analysts and leadership and organizations start looking into AEI, emotional intelligence, because they understood that your people, we talk about even on this platform, the spillover effect, how life can spill over into the job can spill over into the life. There is a spill because the person that shows up is the person that shows up, whether it's, that's why this platform is life, career, business, because all of those domains are always present with one individual. Either they're in a business or they're in a career or they're in both. And life is in all of that, right? And so we can't take people and not deal with, or acknowledge the emotional part of them. And when we begin as a society, as a village, starting to hear people instead of shutting them down, well, I don't want to really want to hear all of that, or I'm not in the mood for that. It's not about whether we're in the mood as the listener or as the person of support. It's about what that individual is going through. If we really love them, allow people to talk, and allow, even if you have an opinion about what they're saying, keep your opinion to yourself, because the way that we support them self-processing is not by injecting our own opinion, our own viewpoint. We allow them to sound off enough that they begin to hear themselves and come to their own conclusion. And 9 times out of 10, if they have that space, they'll be able to do that processing themselves. You won't even have to tell them. And that's where they learn how to put that heart and that mind into balance, logic and passion. They'll learn how to put that into balance themselves. But we don't shut up. We don't cállate la boca. We don't shut our mouths so that they can like really, really express themselves. And I had to learn to do that. Mom, wife, now grandma. I had to learn that my family members are all different. And I know, and the way I learned this is because when I got ready to say something to folks and watch them, because I'm a behavioral analyst. So and I'm naturally, not by training, not by schooling, not by education. No, I've always been a people watcher. And I watch people and how they treat one another. As a child, that was always fascinating to me. And as a child, I would get upset when I saw people mistreat other people. So it's always been a passion. I believe that that's my calling and my alignment. And I had to learn by my own experience how people don't want to hear you out, how people are quick to judge, instead of hearing the whole story or hearing you through, or trusting that you are who you are. And in learning and experiencing that myself, it made me a better listener. And so I learned to be understanding. I learned to be non-judgmental. I learned to have that space and patience for people to actually express their true feelings, right? Without a mask, without all of that.
Yeah, I
We
think,
we have to take, as we hear this, we have to take responsibility in our role in regards to when we begin to look at family, friends, colleagues, when they come to us and need to really express themselves, to give them that space to truly do that so that they are not making these rational decisions.
yeah. And I think as a society, if you look at us now, try to have an opinion on something. You'd be plastered all over social media.
Yes.
People are afraid. It's like you ask somebody how you are. How many people tell you how they are? Number one, they're afraid. They don't want to engage in that. But number two, say your opinion differs from somebody else's. And if it's not the norm in that situation, well, then you're belittled, you're shunned. Nobody wants to do that. And we're losing our voice. And that's not a good thing because we're afraid to have an opinion, to talk to somebody about something, to say how we feel. So we bottle it up or we pretend. If you're with a group of people and everybody likes to go for, pizza, and you don't like pizza, you just go with them anyway because that's what people are doing. The group is going for pizza, and you'll sit there miserable because you won't be able to eat or whatever. But you're afraid to make a suggestion and say, okay, last week or the last 12 times we went for pizza, I know this good place, X, Y, and Z over here that offers pizza, but also offers other options. We're afraid to say that because the first thing we fear is, oh my God, if I speak up, they're going to think I don't want to be a part of the group. They're going to think I don't like them. And nobody knows I don't like pizza because everybody in this group pizza. And who am I to say I don't like pizza? There's something wrong with me because I should like pizza. And that's what we're caught up in kind of now is this, if we have an opinion, and I don't mean be rude about it or uh, be too aggressive, but if somebody has something to say, I really believe they should be allowed to say it, as long as it's not detrimental to everything else. So you don't want to be in a workplace and blast everybody else in the workplace because they're either doing something different or you don't like something, but being able to share your opinion. Okay, when I worked at such and such a place, I don't understand this because we did something this way. Can somebody explain to me why we're doing it this way? Or, culturally, there's certain cultures that do certain things. And at that point, yeah, you don't want to be rude and say, well, in America, we do this, or I come from this town and we do this. But at the same time, you want to let people know that you're not that familiar with something that's going on. I'm not that familiar with this. Could you tell me more about why this is done? Or, oh, this is interesting. I've never done something that way. Could you share more with me? And that way you include other people. You don't come off as being too aggressive or anti anything. And at the same time, you're learning.
Right.
So I just think that we have to get our own voice back, and we could only do that by being quiet, by knowing ourselves, and by tuning in and listening to our heart, and then getting our heart and brain on the same page, of course, to think before you open your mouth, and then start a conversation or ask a question or do something that then could engage other people in a conversation. And I think right now that's what's missing, terribly missing.
Yeah, Teresa, this has been an amazing conversation. I mean, we're out of time, but we're going to come back, Teresa, even if you and I do a one-on-one, we're going to come back and really, tap back into this, because what you said is very important. It's, how did we get to a place where we're so intimidated or we're so doubtful? Maybe the group doesn't even know that just like you said, they don't know that you don't like pizza because you never said it. And you've done all of this self-sabotaging conversation with oneself to say that maybe they're not going to accept it, and then you're in misery. And so we do need to revisit this conversation. This was very, very good. But we're going to leave it at this. So you got to stay tuned for when we have a part two. We'll make sure that it's a part 2, 3, 4, because this is a conversation that we need to have, especially in It's Your Life, Own It, because this is your life. you need to own your life, and you don't need to do it like Teresa said. It's not about being aggressive. It's not about being disrespectful. It's about being honest with yourself and letting people know you who you are authentically, so you can live a fulfilling life, that you're not living a life and you're just going home and you're just not satisfied. That's not what God intended. That's not what your creator intended. And if the universe is so positive, that's not what the universe intended for you to have as a flourishing and fun and fulfilling life. You are brought here. You weren't brought to this earth for a sentence. You were brought to this earth to make it a better place, to enhance its how it shows up. I just believe that wholeheartedly. And the heartbeat behind Own It is positive psychology, positivity, healthy, well balanced. And so this has been good, Teresa. And I believe God ordained it, because this is the heartbeat, behind all that what we do, and encouraging people to be true to thyself, that to thy own self be true. And so we love you guys. We're out. It has been 30 minutes, and hopefully our words inspired you. Take care and have a blessed week. God bless you.